Every year, aviation enthusiasts publish their rankings of the world's best airlines, and the same names cycle through: Singapore Airlines, Emirates, Qatar Airways, and so on. What never appears on those lists is the airline whose boss once stood in front of journalists and proposed charging passengers £1 to use the toilet, who told reporters that anyone forgetting their boarding pass deserved to pay €60 for being so stupid, and who described air transport as a glorified bus operation without a trace of embarrassment. His name is Michael O'Leary, and his airline is Ryanair. What the rankings never mention is that in the first 6 months of its most recent financial year, Ryanair posted a profit of €2.5 billion, up 42% on the same period the year before, while Lufthansa's own passenger airline was running at an operating loss. Ryanair carried over 200 million passengers in a single year, making it the first European airline in history to reach that number. In this video, we take a look at the Ryanair strategy and explain how the airline that everyone laughs at keeps making more money than the airlines that everyone loves. Because the answer is not what most passengers expect, and the numbers are concealing something most of them never notice. To understand what Ryanair became, you first need to understand how close it came to becoming nothing. Tony Ryan, founder of Guinness Peak Aviation, established the airline in November 1984 alongside Christopher Ryan and Liam Lonergan, who ran an Irish travel agency called Club Travel. Their starting capital came to £250,000. Their first aircraft seated 15 passengers, and their opening flight departed Waterford on July 8, 1985, bound for London Gatwick. The target was the Ireland-UK corridor, which at the time had the most expensive fares operated by Aer Lingus and British Airways. For the first several years, the airline chased comfort and tried to win customers by being the better airline. By the late 1980s, that approach had nearly finished the company. And that's when a 27-year-old accountant named Michael O'Leary arrived as CFO in 1988, and within a few years changed everything. A visit to Dallas to meet Herb Kelleher, the founder of Southwest Airlines, gave O'Leary the blueprint he needed, but what he came back with was not a copy of the Southwest model, but something even more extreme. The transformation began with the fleet. Ryanair standardized entirely on the Boeing 737 family, committing every aircraft to the same systems and the same cockpit. Pilots could move between any plane without additional training. Mechanics arrived already knowing the aircraft, and spare parts stayed interchangeable across hundreds of planes at once. When you become one of the largest customers for a single aircraft type on the planet, the negotiating position with the manufacturer becomes easy. Independent analysis by Gridpoint Consulting found Ryanair's discount off Boeing's to be somewhere between 65 and 69%, a figure Ryanair has never confirmed, though 3 decades of fleet expansion make the estimate difficult to dismiss. The fleet currently stands at 618 aircraft, with 181 of those being custom-built to Ryanair's specifications. These carry up to 197 passengers and burns 16% less fuel per seat than the previous generation. Ryanair named it the Game Changer, and the airline has since ordered 300 more, carrying 228 seats, for delivery across the next decade. That is not routine fleet management. That is a carrier rebuilding itself from the airframe up. What Ryanair then does with those aircraft on the ground is where the advantage compounds. A standard airline turnaround runs between 45 and 60 minutes. Ryanair does it in 25. Boarding stairs run on both ends of the plane, hidden air stairs built into the fuselage below the front door, and seat pockets were stripped out of every aircraft in 2004 so passengers carry their own rubbish off. Each aircraft flies up to 8 sectors in a single day, because every minute stationary on the tarmac is a minute generating no revenue. The entire ground operation is engineered around that constraint. The second structural pillar is the airport strategy, and this one works in a way most travelers never think about. Flying Ryanair to Brussels does not mean landing at Brussels Airport. It means landing at Charleroi, more than 50 kilometers south of the city centre. Expanding into Germany historically meant Frankfurt-Hahn, a former US military airfield more than 100 kilometers from Frankfurt city centre. Entering Italy meant Bergamo's Orio al Serio Airport, northeast of Milan, opened as Ryanair's first Italian base in 2003. Secondary airports like these were underused and desperate enough for traffic that they offered terms no major hub would touch: lower landing fees, no slot constraints, and faster turnarounds with no gate congestion. Before Ryanair arrived at Charleroi, that airport processed around 20,000 passengers per year. Frankfurt-Hahn handled roughly 7,000 passengers annually in its early civilian years, and by 2004, that figure had reached 8,000 per day. Ryanair did not simply use those airports. It built them into functioning operations, creating a negotiating position almost no other European carrier has held, because the airports needed Ryanair more than Ryanair needed any one of them. Heathrow charges what it charges because the airlines there have no alternative. Ryanair spent decades building a network where almost no single airport was irreplaceable. And here is where the model gets genuinely interesting, because this is the part most passengers live through without understanding what is actually happening. The base fare is not the product. The base fare is what gets a passenger through the door. In 2025, Ryanair's average base fare sat at around €50, but average total revenue per passenger came to €70. That €20 gap is the ancillary machine: priority boarding, seat selection, checked baggage fees, car hire commissions, hotel bookings, travel insurance, in-flight food and drink, a €100 fee for missing a flight, and a luggage fine that climbed to €70 per oversized bag in late 2025. Ancillary revenue reached €4.72 billion in 2025, a 10% increase on the year before, at a time when average fares were falling by 7%. Ryanair cut ticket prices deliberately to drive volume and relied on the fee structure to protect the margin. More than 95% of tickets are sold directly through Ryanair's own website and app, keeping the airline positioned between every passenger and every additional purchase before boarding. Scaled across 200 million passengers, tickets averaged €70 in total revenue against €62 in total cost, leaving €8 of profit per passenger. The gross profit margin came to 26%, and Ryanair's cost per passenger runs an estimated 30 to 40% below its nearest low-cost competitor and around 60% below legacy carriers. That gap is what Lufthansa and its peers have spent years failing to close. Sitting at the centre of all of this is O'Leary, who understood that controversy functions as free advertising. When he floated the toilet charge proposal in 2009, he specified that passengers should pay to exit rather than enter, so refusal would not be an option, and confirmed that Boeing had already been asked to develop the door mechanism. The story ran everywhere, and Ryanair launched a seat sale the same week. 4 years later, he told Campaign Live magazine that negative publicity sells more seats than positive publicity. He was not speaking metaphorically. He was describing the operating principle that had guided the airline's public presence for over a decade. Stripped of the noise, what Ryanair has built is a system designed to cost less to run than any competitor at scale and to stay that way indefinitely. One aircraft type eliminates cross-fleet complexity. Secondary airports deliver cost advantages that rivals locked into major hubs cannot replicate. A turnaround operation keeps planes generating revenue for more hours per day than almost any other European carrier. And a fee structure ensures that from the moment a passenger books, multiple additional revenue opportunities open up before that person reaches a gate. Monarch is gone. Flybe is gone. Lufthansa launched Eurowings and IAG launched Level as budget responses, and neither has matched the cost base they were built to challenge. Ryanair is targeting 300 million passengers per year by 2034, and all of that is happening while the airline remains one of the least loved carriers in Europe. O'Leary once said that one of the weaknesses of the company is that it is a bit cheap and cheerful, but also overly nasty, and that this reflects his own personality. No apology accompanied that. The airline built on contempt for comfort has outlasted and out-earned almost everyone that tried to beat it. And the question worth sitting with is not whether the model works, because the numbers answered that long ago, but why it took the rest of the industry so long to accept that it did. Have you ever flown Ryanair and sworn off the airline, but then found yourself booking again 6 months later because the fare was just too cheap to ignore? You are not alone. You are precisely the passenger this entire business model was built around. Let me know in the comments below.